Well, thank you, Diane. Diane's feedback surveys from convention, she does sometimes get the word, can you get some new speakers? And the truth of the matter is I know Diane tried very hard this year to get some new speakers, and it's not easy. So there are some of us that do speak a lot for our careers, so we don't get stage fright easy, and personally I do enjoy doing this type of thing. So you are stuck with me again tonight. And this is not a long program, and after a big meal, I think that's probably a good thing for everyone. We'll try to move things along. 2 years ago, I did speak at the convention. Diane asked me then too, and that presentation was on Carmen. And that was a fun presentation because the way the glass is made, the complexity in making Carmen and the story. And I did quite a bit of history in that presentation relative to the years of Cambridge production. We won't be doing so much of that tonight. But with that Carmen presentation, if you recall, not a single piece of the glass was mine. It was all the collection of Bill and Joanne Lyle from Columbus. Now, we just lost Bill Lyle. And so it was kind of interesting. I got their list of glass, and it would be nice if you bring this, this, and this. And then they brought it and cleaned it, and all I had to do was show up and talk about it. It was wonderful. Well, this glass actually all is in my collection. So this one is different. So it is glass that I have a special affection to. Now, many of you know me for many, many years. I've been coming to this convention for 25 years and been involved with the club longer than that. And I'm Swan Man on eBay. Everybody knows everybody's handles. So I'm Swan. Swans are my number one love and still are. I quickly got into the enamel decorations, both on crystal and opaques. The other thing I collect is opaque figural. So you can see that ties in here quite nice with my collection, with the enamel decorations and opaque figurals. Now, every time I speak, it's very important for me to thank the people that got me involved in this type thing. I'm a researcher and teacher for my career, but there were people that laid the groundwork for everything we do and know right now about Cambridge glass. So I'm eternally thankful for the work done earlier and the friendship of Frank and Vicki Wollenhope, for Dave and Sue Rankin, for Lynn Welker, and then Marky Nye is a little bit Marky come lately compared to those others, which might be surprising, but of course the tremendous work that Mark Nye has done. So all of us that speak and have knowledge on Cambridge glass, we rely on all the hard work that they contributed. So I relied heavily on their work for this. Now, I like interactive presentations. So if you've got questions as I go, that's okay. If they're short, I can repeat them because this is a recorded program. If you've got something longer, we're going to need to use the microphone. And of course, we'll take questions at the end as well. So Ebony and Ivory. I have to admit, when I think of Ebony and Ivory, for some reason I think of kind of Art Deco. But for most of you probably, especially if you're in my age bracket, it's that famous song written by Paul McCartney. And we shared a copy, and hopefully most of you got it, sung by Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder. And it makes an analogy of race and with black and white piano keys. So that Ebony and Ivory, that is really the thing that when we hear those words, comes to our mind. Now, maybe not for some of us. We hear Ebony and Ivory, we think this. We don't think about pianos, and we don't think about race relations. We probably think about Ebony and Ivory. So this program actually has a kind of a double meaning. And that's actually a good thing. We're going to come back to that a little bit here as we go along. Now, Ebony by Cambridge. I looked in the dictionary, and ebony has a meaning as a noun. And ebony is a dark, heavy black wood from various tropical trees. So it's a really dark, dense wood. And that's a noun, or an adjective, black. So ebony glass, it's black glass. And it was introduced by Cambridge in 1916. Now, in the book area, Mark, I believe you got that 1916 catalog that Cambridge reproduced a few years ago. It's available, and it's been a treasure trove for me because many of the things we're going to talk about are right in that 1916 catalog of that Cambridge produced. That was during the near-cut era, of course. And we don't know, but the trade journals made a big to-do about reintroducing ebony in 1922. Now, did that mean that they were producing it all along and then they wanted a little jump start to sell more of the stuff? You know, that's what marketing people, we don't know. There were comments in the trade journals that it was a popular seller, but the near-cut ebony, if it was a popular seller, where is it? It's pretty tough to find the really old stuff from the near-cut era, and we'll talk about it in just a minute. It was discontinued, like many of the Cambridge colors, in 1943 because of shortage of materials. But therefore, it was, you know, you take 1922 to 43, that's a good length period of time, yes, 21 years. It was then out of production, but returned in late 1950. And for the Cambridge catalog that's been reproduced, you can see ebony came back into apparently vogue, and the materials were available. But it was removed from production again, apparently, in 1953. And there's no known production, anyhow, during the reopened period. But anything can happen with Cambridge, right, with these glass companies, but not that we're aware of. So the production period was at least 25 years and maybe as much as 30 years. So ebony glass was made by Cambridge for a very long time. Now, ivory by Cambridge has quite a different story. You look at the definitions of ivory, it's a hard, creamy white dentine that forms the tusk of elephants and other animals. Yeah, that's ivory. And another definition, a slightly yellowish white color. I think that's what most of us think of when we think of ivory, paint, or one thing or another. And the third definition, yeah, a piano key. So there we are again. It was introduced in the trade journals and to the public, apparently. The first mention is January 1924, which is shortly after the near-cut years. And it was last mentioned in the trade journals in September 1926, less than 3 years later. Now, maybe it was produced longer than that. Just because it was in the trade journals doesn't mean it wasn't produced somewhat longer. But apparently a fairly short production period, and certainly compared to ebony, which was 10 times longer, more than likely. So quite an interesting thing. Now, I've got some early ebony, some later ebony, and this ivory squeezed in between. Now, ivory, it turns out as a blank, is just wonderful for decorating. Correct? You'd probably all agree. And it's a prized, decorated ivory is prized by most of us that collect Cambridge glass. The color is often referred to generically across glass companies as custard, and because it's kind of the color of custard. Now, ivory contains uranium oxide. It's actually uranium dioxide, and the percentage in the Cambridge from the batch books is 0.3%. So, you know, 0.3%. But on a black light, it's pretty obvious, the uranium content. Now that compares to topaz, 0.7, double. And of course the one that is just crazy among all the Cambridge colors is primrose, 2.9% uranium dioxide in each batch. So, and then boy, that's got a yellow color to it. So a lot of times people that grind glass, they'll avoid grinding. They say they can't grind Vaseline glass. Well, they won't touch it. And sometimes even emerald, light emerald, which also has some uranium. But actually, primrose would be the one that they'd probably worry the most about as far as the dust. The other thing, it's often pointed out that the uranium that they were using was spent, which means it's depleted, it's recycled. And I tried really hard online. I studied like crazy, and I can tell there's no difference between recycled uranium or uranium. And in the glass books, it's very clear the glass companies were using both. They were using depleted, spent uranium dioxide, which is recycled, or they were using fresh stuff. And so it's radioactive. It sets the black light off. But it's not a health hazard, and we shouldn't worry about that. But maybe if I was a glass grinder, I wouldn't. I'd have a mask on doing primrose. Now, the other thing that is often commented about ivory, and it seems like it's often on these flower frogs, the bigger pieces, that they can have a yellow or greenish tinge to them. And if you look on eBay, they talk ivory, and they swear it's green. So again, it turns out that uranium is a green colorant, slate green. And the other thing for all the glass companies, a real problem was the purity of sand. Iron in sand causes green coloring. So it would seem that, and that was a particular problem for Crown Tuscan when they made it, and they put arsenic in to counterbalance the green from the iron impurity, and then they'd get the slaggy stuff, which some of us like better, but it's not very creamy Crown Tuscan. So iron can be a real problem. So we don't know. These pieces that are green, it could be something about the mold, it could be something about iron in the sand. And I would guess as years went by, they were better at getting with magnets or one thing, getting the sand purified. I don't know that for a fact. Well, let's talk a little bit about the ebony blanks and decorations then. On this end are the near-cut pieces. This is a near-cut punch bowl. You don't see a lot of those. I believe the pattern's 2351. This is a community piece of, have I got that right, Lynn? Yeah, of decanter, and how many of those are out there? I wanted one of these for so long, and you never know, but I had to get it from a collector's collection to get a turtle, a flower frog, but it's in that near-cut catalog going way back to 1916. Then there's this enamel decoration, and it's clearly in the 1916 catalog now that Mark helped reproduce for the club. And it's all these very old near-cut blanks that enamel decoration appears on. They've got these flower blocks, the little bitty one. There's 4 sizes. And then there's this big jumbo thing, that flower block. And they've got somebody took the time to put that white enamel by hand on every one of those holes or rings. All the candlesticks here have a mate back home, but I didn't think they needed to make a joint trip to Cambridge. The candlesticks are very unique as far as the decoration. It's more delicate. So often we see this decoration on the vases, and it's the great big flowers. And the vases are easier to find than some of these smaller pieces that have the more intricate designs on them. There are some that are smashing. There's one big vase, kind of a trumpet vase, that's got the flower on the inside right on top. It's smashing. A beautiful display piece. And then they've got the big pan bowls as well that you could put these flower blocks in. Comport, another interesting piece right in that 1916 catalog. And many of these pieces, not the candlesticks or this piece, but the decoration is shown right in there. So we know the decoration was done by Cambridge because it was right in the catalog. Another decoration that they did was deep intaglio etching, and the most common piece of that is the dog box, cigarette box. Not that hard to find, perhaps, but a cigarette box with a real deep etched intaglio etch. Another thing that was done was incrustations. Usually it was etching and then encrusted afterwards. Now there are ebony pieces that are just etched. You'll find a little bit in Clio. We're going to show you a piece down here that's Portia. So from where you're sitting, you might not be able to see that this piece is etched Portia. This was quite a bit later than the near cut period. This was in the 30s, more than likely. Now, wouldn't this be a little better if it was encrusted? Probably, but it's not. It's still pretty nice and has little tumblers to go with it, with the Portia etching. The gold encrusting, gold incrustation, there's some very nice pieces. There's the one decoration that has different names, but I always call it the two cocks on top, and that it's done in vases and other pieces. So they were doing gold incrustation. This stemware is quite nice with the Imperial Hunt etching and then gold encrusted on it. And it comes in different sizes. Not very much of this out here. I believe, Lynn, you said maybe one major set, one good size set. So there are some pieces out there, but it's not the least bit common and quite difficult to find, but a very striking set. The thing on ebony, it's very seldom that the whole blank is ebony. And this is really the only one, I believe. It's always usually the stem. And you think of the 3011, the nude stem, they're everywhere. There's a lot of those. It's just the stem, some with the foot. But generally, when Cambridge had an ebony drinking vessel, it was just the stem and the foot that had the etching. While I'm talking about the gold encrusting, I'll talk about gold incrustation. I'll talk about the tobacco humidors. And of course, you all know the story here. The inner lid that's got the material in it to keep the tobacco moist. How often do we see these without the mate? And you can, easy to lose. This could easily be damaged. So when you can get the mate, it's pretty nice. Now, this, to me, is just an incredible production item of Cambridge. It's one of my favorite. This is about, to me, the epitome of Art Deco. The 3115 stem, the shape of the stem with the Rosalie etching on it and the square. Now, I started, many of you know I'm in agriculture now, but I did start college in architecture. So these cubist lines and whatever, just fast. I love Art Deco in all forms. So Art Deco came right after World War I in France, the late teens, and then came to the US in the 20s. So this is spot on Art Deco production period. Now, all the various sizes here, tumbler, cocktail, Deco, 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 right? And this little thing, I got my first one 10 years ago. I was lucky enough to find a set of these, so I've got a set at home now. But I got my first one about 10 years ago, just like this. And so this is a sherbet, I think, generally. Anybody have any other ideas how you might use this? Yeah, well, I'm a martini drinker. I like gin. So I got my first one 10 years ago, and I figure about every other night, I make myself a martini. For 10 years, how many martinis? 1,800? Yeah, probably something like that. Yes, I've broken one. And isn't it frustrating if people say, people use this stuff? Well, I can't help not. My martini tastes so much better out of one of these. It just is. But I did break one. But after that many, you go over 1,000, maybe it was okay. While I'm right here, I'm going to follow up with these other humidors. Well, you can imagine this one. Maybe for some of you, this particular humidor wouldn't mean much. But again, if you love Art Deco and you love enamel, oh my gosh. This thing is just, oh my gosh. I like this one better than this one. I mean, this is incredible. And it's very Art Deco. And it is an etching that you can find in the etching book. And then this little guy, I don't know why, Dragon seems to be real popular with collectors. I don't know why, but it is. So I missed this piece. Now this is a blank going way, way back. This is one of those special article blanks going back to the near cut era. And they had this satinized gold and gold decoration. And isn't it incredible? It's just, it's, you know, you look at this and you think it was probably made last year. You know, it is so perfect and precise. So they had high quality craftsmanship. It certainly was durable and just gorgeous. Also, while I'm here, this little gal, it's actually two pieces, and it's the radio lamp, it's called. There is a light that goes up underneath, and then the light would show through the figurine. So kind of just an interesting conversational piece. And this is a Cambridge production. It's different base than the standard 1518 draped lady. So this is made specifically to fit in the radio lamp. Some of the other drinking vessels, there's the 3025. I'll try not to get into too many of these numbers. 3120, 3130, 3140, and the 3400, they all had the ebony stem and foot. And then apple blossom was a real common etching that they would put on the top, but there are others, Gloria, Rosalie, etc. And then in later years, they continued with ebony on the tuxedo, round-based, round foot without a stem, and a crystal top, as well as the game sets, you know, with the spades and the clubs and that type of thing. And so there were other types of drinking vessels that they used. Now, with ebony and liking figurals, I consider Everglades a figural. So yeah, another thing that needed to come into my collection, and it's pretty spectacular in Everglade, ebony that is, and then this springtime. Wow. Isn't it something with that satin background and the clear follow just pop out. Springtime, about 1929, 1930, something like that. They had springtime, and comes in all the different sizes. Now the figurals, again, this is a prime collecting area for me. The Scotties, pretty common in crystal, right? You can see them pretty common, but these ebony ones are just so nice, and they are just really eye-catching. Now, isn't this a lovely vase that you'd want to have out when your guests are there? And the frog vases with the handle, I can think of another use for that, and so it is not a very elegant piece of glass, but it certainly makes for a good conversation piece, doesn't it? I didn't know this existed till recently, the ebony dog bottle. It occasionally pops up, not very often, in azurite. So I was quite happy when this one, I was able to add it to my collection. And the cherub candlestick comes in some other colors in addition to crystal, but in ebony, it's especially sweet. We got, of course, our little bridge hound. It's another figural. And then, who doesn't like bunny boxes? I think we all do. But usually, in crystal, it's way easier. And of course, this thing, it's so often, and I know Phyllis Smith had fun with it too in the crystal ball, because so many of us talk so much about the swans and their feathers. So, does a rabbit have feathers or not, or smooth or feathered? And it's like, no, it would be fur. Then, as far as for the ebony, as far as decorations, and I know Lynn Welker has talked a lot about this. A problem. This is great stuff, I think, but it's not silver. We don't think they said silver in the catalog. And unfortunately, because people thought it was silver, they used silver polish on it, and it just takes the decoration off. So I think the conjecture is that it's either white gold or platinum. But particularly here on the Gloria pieces, these flower petals are so flat. It's not like a tipple incrustation that you could get it into something. So I'm tending to think this might be platinum. And certainly the rim then would be painted on platinum, and I think there's pretty good evidence that it's platinum. But some of these may be white gold as all. It probably doesn't make any difference, but don't use silver polish on it, whatever you do. And then I'm a little partial to these, but on like the swayback Scotty decoration, of course, it's got a number. When you look at it, you can tell that it's painted on. So again, it's probably a platinum that's painted on. It's not silver plated in any way. It's hand decorated, and again, quite striking on ebony. Then, well, you can imagine for Swan Man. Oh my gosh. And I was lucky. I fought somebody that's a member of a club eBay pre-photos. And they described a 10-incher with 8 of these babies. And yeah, it's Rockwell. And it came from the Hershey estate. Because I emailed, I purchased it at the Hershey family estate. And then, so I've seen it in the 3-inch. This is a style 2. There's a style 1. The 6-inch and the 10-inch, which is just incredible, the 10-inch. And then there was an 8-inch that popped up. Somebody's got an 8-inch. I don't know who it is. It came out on eBay. And of course, what'll happen in this one too, they thought it was just ebony because the silver was so tarnished. This is silver. You use silver polish on this. And of course, this one, it was essentially all ebony, or looked ebony, but when I polished it, the silver came out. But Rockwell decoration on ebony is just breathtaking, just striking. And of course, those of you who have this silver, you know forced air furnace, what it does over the winter. Every spring, it's got a nice yellow patina from a forced air furnace, but then through the whole summer, it shines quite well. This piece of ebony, I have to admit, I don't do etchings or incrustations for the most part. That's not my collection. But of all of them, I like Blossom Time on ebony, so this is a piece that I like. This even got a big label on the inside. And again, the gold incrustation just pops out of this. And this, a number of blanks were produced it appears in 1940, so relatively later in the production period. And of course, it's Rose Point, and I think that's worth a few dimes, and Chantilly, and Wildflower, in addition to the Blossom Time. So very striking use of gold incrustation on ebony, but there's not a lot of it out there, and the prices are usually pretty premium. Well, let's talk a little bit about ivory then. Because of the short production period, the range of blanks is much narrower. You know, it's the 20s, in the early 20s. It's actually before the catalog, the Smith catalog reproduction, just before that. So it's a very narrow period of time. Again, a lot of those special articles from the teens and early 20s are the blanks that it appears in. Now, the ivory typically is in council sets, vases, plates, and covered candy jars. Occasionally, it surfaces as perfumes and atomizers. Infrequently, it surfaces as flower holders or figurines. Now, when you think of ivory, what is maybe one of the most spectacular pieces of ivory? The owl, yeah. And again, I had to guess what would be here, and there is an owl on display out in the lobby. So that, and of course, most ivory owls, they were all ivory, not all ivory. Most of them were ivory to begin with, and then had brown enamel, or most of them had brown enamel put on them. The monkeys, likewise. were ivory with the brown enamel or green. Now there's a few exceptions. There's a crystal monkey, there's an azurite, there's a multicolor in the museum, and there is an ebony owl. And I have that, but I didn't bring it. It was here last year, so there was no use. It is a little tough. One thing, getting this presentation ready, my glass got washed. And that was something Joanne said last year. It was nice to get your glass washed. So this stuff got a bath, which was really nice. But I was still a little hesitant to pack some of these up and bring them along. The incrustations, you can't hardly say common, but is the basket or the hanging basket. We'll find pieces. This actually has a sticker with a triangle and 22 karat gold. It'll occasionally pop up on pieces of Cambridge with gold incrustation. And then this classic etching comes in different sizes. This is larger of the two. So, and then blue willow, and very nice. The blue on ivory's contrast is gorgeous. And there's, out in the display case, you can see the covered candy jar and the box. Then we've got this iris stuff that I've taken a real liking to. And again, it's a fairly narrow range of blanks because it's a narrow range of time, but beautiful hand-done decoration. And I believe I'm right, it was John Wolfe, a member of the club, but was involved especially involved early in the club. His mother, his aunt did this iris decoration by hand. And the council bowl with the big irises. And the flower frog popped up in a mall just across the border from the Twin Cities, a little town called Osceola, a mall there, and it was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. So it works well, sitting in there. This is another one that I really like. I don't know if, I don't think there's any names for any of these. I refer to it often as mum. And you can get it on the bowls and have it in the console sets as well. And then these daisies, I call this yellow daisies, maybe other names for it out there. This decoration, I suppose there's some chance it's not Cambridge, but there's no reason it isn't Cambridge. Probably something doesn't make much difference. The gold looks Cambridge. It looks like a pretty good match. Stick vase comes with all the standard enamel decorations of ivory. This one's different. Now this is the more common, what I'd call white daisy, and kind of interesting how they put this on with the little box below each one of the daisies. And then they tried different things. I think this is a nice variation of it with the blue enamel instead. The covered candy boxes. I don't know if we've coined a name for this among collectors, but a little flower box, it would appear. Quite a nice piece, and it comes in many different bowls and candlesticks and that type of thing. Then we've got old George and Martha. George on one side and Martha on the other side in this covered candy jar. And here on the vase, Martha and George. Now, just a couple things on this. I don't know, we have no records that would suggest this is definitely a Cambridge decoration. I think I'm correct on saying that. We don't know for sure who did this. It may not have been Cambridge. But I would say that this mat is very similar to this mat. So I wouldn't rule out that it was done by Cambridge, but we can't say some of these things for sure. Now, another thing that I think is interesting, 1732 to 1932. When did I say the last mention? 26. So what does that say? You know? Well, George Washington has been kind of a popular fellow in this country for a very long time. So he was born in 1732. So it wouldn't surprise me already in the 20s, the middle of 20s, they were looking forward to the bicentennial of his birth. So I think this still could fit that production period pretty nicely, even though it's got 1932 on it. Now, they also did a carnival type, not carnival, caramel flashing type of decoration on ivory. There's a piece of ebony that, in addition to the owl, that is very large and special. What's another one? A very big piece of ebony. The mannequin head. And I think maybe 2 or 3 of those have surfaced, one heavily damaged, but I think, if my memory is correct, one that was in pretty good shape as far as the memory heads. So if you see an owl lamp or a monkey lamp, you pretty well know the production period. And there are not a lot of those out there, are there? And you know it's going to be from that period in the 20s. Now, piano keys. And I can tell we all had that big buffet. So we'll close up here. Piano keys and the song. Is there anybody that can sing the song for us? Anybody good a cappella? Come on. Too bad that Shelley isn't here. Huh? Jack? Lynn? I got it for you. Come on, Lynn. It's
Ebony and Ivory live together in perfect harmony. Ebony and Ivory live together in perfect harmony. Side by side on my piano keyboard, oh Lord, why don't we? I don't know the tune very well.
no.
We'll just good idea.
But thank you. It's a musical song, and Lynn is very musical. So a keyboard, piano keyboard, has 36 keys that are ebony, black, and 52 that are white or ivory. Now, those black keys were made of ebony wood originally, and the white keys were made of wood covered with ivory strips. So, of course, all I can think is all those ivory strips, all those poor elephants, but that's not the case anymore. So they're wood-based, and today spruce is the highest quality. They use spruce. And many pianos, it's basswood. In our part of the country, we call them linden trees. It's very good for making piano keys. And then it's covered with black or white plastic. So when I think of piano keys, I don't really think that much yellow today, but the older ones would have been with the ivory. And of course, ivory, if you see extremely old ivory, it's pretty yellow. It really ages with time. So, however, the song Ebony and Ivory, thank you, Lynn, was about skin color, wasn't it? The analogy was skin color. Well, okay, if somebody had this color skin, pretty jaundiced, right? Maybe too many of those martinis. But so, you know, this is our ivory, but actually for that song, probably this isn't the ideal fit. And again, with the greenish tinge. Now, Caucasian skin color, white flesh, oh, it certainly varies, yes. But most people say it's a tannish pink, right? Or a pinkish cream. Tannish pink, pinkish cream. Okay, well, I've got another color here that Cambridge made that I think might be a little better fit, tying in ebony, and a color that might be a little closer to skin tone. This one, same. You can think of a piano key. Huh? And I've got just 2 more. Yeah, I like this. It's got a, this is a centerpiece in my collection. My case is it's right dead. Now, what kind of flower holder will we put in that? Crown Tuscan? Ebony. I agree. Ebony's the only way to go.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know they'd make that.
Yeah, they made one. So, that's the presentation. Any questions?